Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today on Masechtas Menachot daf Mem Gimel. We're going to begin on Mem Gimel Amud Aleph, about 7 lines from the top. Mar Memashchi. So Rashi says Mar is the shame of a chacham. Memashchi is the name of a place. I see Techelta. He had this tchelas. Shnei Rav Achoy Badkua. And he had his this tchelos because he wanted to make sure it was good. So he was biting it, but Rav Yitzchak buried Rav Yehuda. The Ifrid Chizuse. So we mentioned at the top of this Amud that there's actually 2 ways you can check to see if this is good tchelas or not. So one way of doing this was based on the test of Rav Yehuda, who he took alum and some fenugreek and old meraglayim, he soaked it, and in the event that the color went away, then it was possible. And then Rav Ada, and then he also did the second test with Rav Ada, in which he put it together with a harsh yeast and barley, and he baked it together with it, and there, if it got better, then it was tchelos. If it got worse, then not. So, Rab Ada v'ishtani l'mayusa. So what happened was, so first of all, he did the first test, and it was v'ifrad chizuse, which means that the color went away, right? So, which means it's a problem, right? So it failed the test, right? So according to this, it failed the test. And then the second one is Vishtam Lemel Yusa, right? Which means it passed the test. So this is a little bit problematic. He took 2 tests. With one of them it's chelos, one of them it's not chelos. So several misala. So he figured because he failed the first test, he should pass it. So Amelahu, Rabachoy, Eloha, Lo Techilta, he. So what he's saying, that it's not chelos, but you did pass this second test. V'lo kal ilan. This is actually not kal ilan, which is like this indigo, total fake techelas. Because if in fact it was totally fake techelas, then the second test would have passed. El shma mina shemaita shmuasa hadadi itmar. The 2 tests were actually linked. You're supposed to actually do both of them. So heicha dibid kana ben Rav Yitzchak bered Rav Yehuda. Let's say he did the first test, and lo ifrid chizuse, and it didn't lose its color, then kshera, and that's good. However, ifrid chizuse, let's say it did change, sin bad kinan la ben Rav Ada. So then you can now go on to the second test, and then check that out. B'chamira archasa. And again, using this, as we said before, this harsh yeast. So ishtani lemel yusuf, it got better than ksheril ger yusuf psula. So therefore, that's what you can do. So it's not that, well, one of the 2 tests failed and therefore that's it. No, if the first test is good. If it's not good, use the second test, and then that also could be sufficient. So shalchim etam shemuasa hadari inmar, that these 2 tests were actually linked. Rav Mani Dayik v'zavin kichaimri masnisa. So Rav Mani, he was very careful when he purchased the techelas, that he was only going to use, as Rashi says, min hamumcha. He would make sure that there was an expert, because even though there's all these tests, but the truth is you don't know, as we said in at the end of yesterday's shir, that it was a te'ima. That it's possible that even though it's tchelas, but it may have been the part that was used to test to see if it was good, and therefore that part would not be allowed to be used. So therefore you have to be careful and use an expert. So Ramani daik v'zavin k'chayim mastisa. Amalehu saba hachi avid kamei de kamach ve'atzlach iskaihu. That this, if someone who in fact does this and is strict, then you will be successful in your business. Tanaban halokeach talis mitsuyatsas minashuk. Let's say a person purchases tzitzis from the marketplace. So it depends. Misrael v'yid harhi b'cheskasa. Well, you can just assume that it's totally fine, and you can just use them right away. Now, minho avin chachavim, if let's say it's from an avin chachavim, this is going to be question 14 in a second. It will depend. Now, if it's minatagar kshera, if it's a merchant, then it's going to be okay, because this individual, even though he's an akum, says Rashi, im tagarhu kshera deloi mara nashe v'zavin la misrael v'kshera. There's no way that he's going to be careful. He will be careful, because otherwise it's going to ruin his business. However, in a hedjit psula, if you purchase a stam from a hedjit akum, then it's going to be puzzle. Now, you're not allowed to purchase them until you take the strings off. So my time, what's the problem? So there's a couple issues. One is that if you purchase from an akum, there's an issue of zaina. What is zaina? So Rashi actually gives a couple answers. So Dilma Havili Zaina Yisrael. So let's say there's a Jewish woman who happens to also be a zaina. The Savru Yisrael, and she thought that this guy, because he has these tzitzes, this talis, whatever, that he's a yid. And thinking that he was Jewish, she was going to be have bia, maybe it was even l'shem kedushin. So va'avrin mishum lo tischasin bam. There's an isser of lo titchaten bam, that you can have chasnus, you can't marry an akum, right? It's intermarriage. It doesn't work. So it's an isser lav. So because of Zaina, we're concerned to protect this woman who is a Zaina Yisraelis. Alternatively, maybe it's a non-Jewish akum, Zaina. But maybe the non-Jew will be intimate with this Zaina, who's also an akum, and as payment, he'll give this talis, Yamru. And she'll end up saying, Ki Yisrael nosnali yasil michshida. So she can start saying, there's also a Gemara in Brachos like this about tefillin, that if you leave your tefillin, someone could take it, and also because of Zaina, similar idea. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Shem yatlu imo b'derech v'hargenu. So it could be quite dangerous if you're among someone who is not trustworthy, an akum who could be very untrustworthy, who you could take your life. So if he disguises in the garments of a yid, so then you could actually trust this person, then all of a sudden in a vulnerable situation, you can be killed. Question 14. So minatagar is kshera, the merchant, because he's not going to ruin his reputation. Minahedit psula, the shemahu tzava ushaloi l'shma nasis. Maybe it was Shalol Shema. Okay, it didn't say that in Rashi, but that's Pashut. Okay, so that is question 14. Rabbi Huda Rami Techilta Leparzuma. So it should Gemara in Sukkah as well. We had a Gemara in Sukkah before in yesterday's daf too. So he would actually take tzitzis and put it on his wife's garment. The inchi base. And he also, when he would put on the tzitzis, he would also make a bracha every morning. Now, midrami ksavar mitzvah aseh shalozman gramahu my mavarech kol tzipor safra safra. Seems to be a kastira. Why did he have his wife wear tefillin, talis rather? Because he held that it's a mitzvah saseh shalozman grama. As the Gemara in Kedusha Daf Chav Tes says, any mitzvah which is not time bound, which is positive mitzvah, women are pot. If it is time bound, they're potter. It's shalozman grama, they're chayiv. So therefore they're chayiv. So if it's something which means that Lila, therefore, is Zman Tefillin, Zman Tzitzis, so, and Shabbos is Zman Tzitzis. So, if that's the case, so then why would he make a bracha? You only make a bracha once in your life, apparently, right? You wouldn't have to do it every morning. Where is this Karebi? The sign is Tefillin, Kol Zman Shemanichin, every time you put on the Tefillin, Mavar Chalein, Divrei Rabbi. So, Yihachi Kol Shaitan Nami. So whenever he puts on the tzitzis, he should say, not just once in the morning. So Rabbi Yehuda in his shenua, he was very modest. He wouldn't take it off all day. So it's not that he would take it on and off, on and off. It was always on. So in the morning he would put it on, and that's it. So that's the case. Why in the morning? Because so he'd get up. He was wearing pajamas, and ksus laila, he didn't put them on. He put on new clothes. And he put on his tzitzis. And when he put on the talis, then he made a bracha. Tanabam. Hakol chayim b'tzitzis. Everyone has to wear Kohanim, Levim, Yisraelim, Gerim, Noshim v'avadim. Even women. There's Shimon, Poita b'Noshim, Imnei, Shemitzvahs, Aseh Shazman Gramahu, B'chol Mitzvahs, Aseh Shazman Grama, Noshim Peturos, as you can see on the side. It should say on the side, Chav Tes. Okay, it's a Gemara in Kedushin. It's over here. So Omer Mar, Hakol chayavim b'tzitzis, Kohanim, Levim, Yisraelim, Shita. The Kohanim, Levim, Yisraelim, Patiri, Man l'chayev. Like, what's the question? Obviously, Jewish men have to wear tzitzis. What's the shayla? Why do they have to include them? So Kohanim is tzrichale. It says that we're never allowed to wear wool and linen together, but there's an exception of Gedilim Tasalach, as we saw, as Machlos Beis Shammai Hillel, but basically, as we see according to Beis Hillel, he does darshan smuchin, and therefore a person can have tzitzis which have this mixture of wool and linen. Now, otherwise, there would never be a time that this could take place. So mandalo ishtri kilayim legabe b'levishahu d'mechayev b'tzitzis. Only a person like Yisrael who is never allowed to otherwise wear tzitzis, never otherwise allowed to wear wool and linen together, is chayiv in tzitzis. But hani kohanim hoyel v'ishtani kilayim legabayu l'chavayu kamash mulon. However, when it comes to the kohanim, and there's a machlokes Gemara in Yoma about this, exactly is there a difference between the belt on Yom Kippur and on Stamazoi? So when it came to the belt, I'm sure Rashi is going to say this. It just says Avnei Tichsiv Bei Sheish V'Tcheles, right? So it has wool and linen in the belt. So that's the Kohanim had a shatnez belt already. So therefore, since there's this indication, so maybe the only time a person is chayav in tzitzis is someone who typically has the isser of shatnez. But since they don't always have the isser of shatnez Kohanim, maybe they don't have to have tzitzis either. So kamash one nihid yishtari b'idan avoida b'idan avoida l'ishtari. But the truth is, and again, it's only by the avnei is also the shayla. But again, at least in the havamina. But the point is that when it comes to the kohanim, this heter is only to wear this belt b'shas avoida. But when it's not the time of avoida, you can't wear this belt. Okay. So Rav Shimon poit menashe my time and Rav Shimon. Why do they not have to wear tzitzis? The Sanya Risemoi says Praluksus Laila. So since it's not including garments that you wear at night, so therefore tzitzis is an example of a mitzvah saseh shazman grama nashim peturos. So that's the reason. So Atoimer Praluksus Laila Praluksus Suma. Maybe a blind person, where it says Urisemoso, you have to see it. So someone who's blind can't see. No, actually, a blind person is chayiv in tzitzis. Again, there's a whole machlokas if a blind person is mechuyev b'chol Torah kul and any mitzvahs. But assuming that they are mechuyev, fine. So, question is, so how many memakayim risemo? Except panduchus laila. So my risel rabbis ksus suma lohaisik ksus laila. There's a ribo in the pasuk and there's a miyat. So why would you include a blind person in tzitzis and exclude ksus laila? Or in women. So Marbani Ksus Suma Shishaburia Eitzel Acherim. Because even though they can't see, but everyone else can see. So therefore that also, and the seeing, as the Gemara in Megillah discusses, they could be assisted in their seeing. So therefore that also accounts for something. So Marni Ksus Suma Shish Buria, Eitzel Cherem. Moitzin Ksus Laila Shin Buria Eitzel Cherem. It's dark for everyone at night. Okay. Fine. So that's the answer behind that. Rabbanan. How about according to the Shita of Rabbanan, as we continue to Amud Beis, and this is a pretty light Gemara, Baruch Hashem, after going through Zvachim and the beginning of Menachos. What do they do with that pasuk? So Al arba kanfos kasuscha. It says it's supposed to be 4 corners. So arba v'lo shalish. It has to be a 4-cornered garment, not 3. So ato aimer arba v'lo shalish oeno el arba v'lo chamish. Maybe not 5. Nagashu aimer shetekasaba harba alos chamish amar. Ma'ani memakayim al arba v'lo shalish. Amarisa rabas balas chamish or haitzi balas shalish. So we know that the tzitz is supposed to be a 4-cornered garment. But for some reason, we're saying 5 is good, but 3 is not. But why? Why shouldn't it be the other way around? So Marbani balas chamish yesh b'chal chamish arba. Mostani balas shalish in b'chal shalish arba. It's kind of like the expression mitach masai mana. Within $200 is 100. So too over here, that it's supposed to be a 4-cornered garment. So if it's 5 corners, so there is 4. But if it's 3, it's not getting to 4. Rav Shimon ma'asher, from the extra word asher nafka. Rabbanan asher lo mashmal, they don't make a drush from it. Rabbanan, hi, this pasuk Risema Iso ma'yavadalei. What does he teach from? What does he learn from that? Meboyo l'sanya. Risema Isai, that when you see that tzitz is chartem and you remember, so a mitzvah zu, remember, see in this mitzvah. By doing that, you'll remember other mitzvahs. Hatuliyah, which is connected to this. This is a Kriya Shema. So, what's the connection between being able to see your tzitzis, the blue and white in your tzitzis, and the mitzvah of Kriya Shema? Did not, because it says in the second Mishnah in Brachos on Daf Tes, Memasei Karna Shema Shacharis. There's a machlokus over there. One says between blue and green, but the Gemara over there says Mishiyakir ben Chel Solam. You can tell the difference between blue and white. Blue and white in your tzitzis. So therefore, they're linked. So Ra mitzvah, you see this mitzvah, you see the tzitzis, v'zachar mitzvah acheres, smuchaloi. What is the mitzvah which is smuchaloi? Mitzvah mitzvahs kilayim. Nechsev l'silba shatnes semer pishav yachtem gedium tasalach. As we said, so you'll remember. Once you do this mitzvah, you're going to be chayiv in all the mitzvahs. That it's a mitzvah saseh which is bound by time. Okay, what does that mean? So Rashi says, as we said, since it's bound by time, to pater b'nashim, it's when we're pater d'irabanan, ha'ika nashim, chayav ispa upeturis mekama mitzvahs. They could be chayav in this and pater other mitzvahs. Okay. Tan idach or yisemoi says achartem is kol mitzvahs Hashem shkula mitzvahzu keneged kol mitzvahs kulan. That this mitzvah is keneged all the mitzvahs. Gemara Makos, but Rashi says over here it says as kol mitzvahs oid the tzitzis is b'gematria 600, and there's v'heik sharim and 5 knots, v'ches chutin and 8 strings is Haritaryag. That's a famous drasha. So it's Keneged Kol Torah Kula. Shkula Mitzvazu Keneged Kol Mitzvahs Kula. V'tani Idach, another brisa says, Risema Oiso Zachartem Yasisem, so Re'iyah maybe Lidi Zachira. Seeing gets you to remember. Zachira Lidi Yasiyah gets you to do. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, the Rashbi, Oimer Kol Azaris Mitzvazu. Anyone who is very particular and careful in doing this mitzvah properly. So Zaycha Mekabel b'nei Shechina. You're going to be Zaycha to be Mekabel the Shechina. The Ksiv Hachor Yisem Oisos Ksiv Hasam Es Hashem Kachatir V'Oiso Tavli. Tell about Chaviv in Yisrael. So beloved are the Yidden. Shet Sivam V'Nakadosh Baruch Hu mitzvahs. That Hashem surrounds them by mitzvahs. So mitzvah is a beautiful thing, and Hashem gives us these mitzvahs. And we're going to see 7 of them. Tefillin b'roi shehen. Tefillin b'zroyehen. So there's tefillin on your arm and your head. But tzitzis b'bigdehen. Then you have the tzitzis, the 4 corners. The mezuzah b'schehen. And you have a mezuzah on your door. V'alein oimer David sheva b'yoyim hal ticha. 7 mitzvahs I praise. Al mishmeisid kacha. Says Rashi, what are the 7? This is how he breaks it down. Tefillin Baroish. It was Raya Harish time. So tefillin is 2. The Arba Tzitzios, which means that each of the corners is a separate mitzvah. Umezuzah Harish Sheva. Okay. It was Shosh and it's double based on Merchatz. When he went to the bathroom, he's naked. Right? There's no mezuzah on the door because it's a bathhouse or bathroom. I can't wear tefillin. I can't wear and I don't know why I can't wear tzitzis. Okay, maybe it's like a talus you can't wear. So v'kivan niskar, he was naked, so he was going to the bathhouse. So he just obviously had to take it off. So the kivan niskar b'milah shibasara in the yashvadaito. He felt bad, but he felt better because even when a person is completely arum, you're still shaykh to a mitzvah. Afterwards he said a shira shnemar gamnatzecha shminis. So mizmor David al milah shenitna b'shmini. It's given on the 8th, but also an alternative vort is that there's 7 mitzvos and then milah is the 8th. So that could be also the idea behind that. Let's look at question 22, TA 22. Alman nemer sheva b'yom halticha al elu mitzvahs ve'echa cheshbin shel sheva gemara Rashi. Okay, so that let's just mark this down. That's Mem Gilmon Bays. This is TA 22. Okay, TA 22, and you need to know that Rashi, the tefillin shel yad, tefillin shel roish, the 4 corners of the tzitzis, and the mezuzah. Okay, let's see, TB. Okay, we'll get back to that. Actually, let's do that now. So that's a little bit more thought out the way it's written. So if it's Yisrael, we're not chayish because it's a chazaka. Okay, but if it's an akum, it depends. If he's a tiger, then we're not concerned. But if it's a hedget, then we are concerned. Okay, that's TB 25. TB 25. Okay. All right, let's finish this daf. Rabbi Lezman Yankov Oimer Koshish lo tefillin b'roisha. If you're wearing tefillin on your head, tefillin b'zoya, but tzitzis b'bigdom, mezuzah b'pischai, hakol b'chizik shul yachatet. So it can be steadfast that you're not going to sin. Shenemar b'achot ha'mashulish lo b'meher not take. You have the 3 things. You have tefillin, you have mezuzah, and you have tzitzis. You're not going to sin. Yomer chayim malach Hashem saviv li'oriyav. And Hashem will protect you and save them. Tanya hay Ramir Omer manishtan techelos mikol minit tzivuinim. So what's the difference between techelos from all the other colors? Why is it dafka blue? So or this shade of blue? Memneish at techeles damil yam, because it's comparable to the sea, the color of the sea. Yam damil rakia, and the sea is comparable to the color of the sky. Rakia kisei covered. So by you wearing the tzitzis, so you remember the kisei covered. Shenemar v'sachas ragav kamasu livnas saper, that it uke'etzam hashemayim l'tayer v'ksiv kimari evan sapir, like the sapphire color dumos kisei. So on this, my Rosh Hashiva Rabbi Zwag asked the obvious kasha. So Hashem could have made the color exactly the same as the kisei covered. So why is it that's like the sea, and the sea is like the sky, and the sky is like the kisei covered? So the answer is based on a Mishnah he brings down in Pirkei Avos. It says a person's walking and learning, he's poisek mishnasa. You stop learning and you say, "Oh, kamen nod Elon zeh, how beautiful this tree is or this field is." So he says, "You're chai b'nafshay." So what do you mean? So what's the vart? Is because if you're masik mishnasa, if you look at the world around you and you're not able to elevate your Torah from it, then you're missing the whole point of Torah. The purpose of Torah is to be able to elevate the world around you. So therefore, it's purposely that the Techelis is to remind you of all the things around us in this world, all the vast sea and the sky, and to be able to take all the Gashmi in this world, to elevate it, to then to be able to connect to Kisei Kov. Tanya Hayra Meir Aimer Gadol Einshishal Lavan Yosim Einshishal Techelis. It's worse if you don't have the white in your tzitzis than the blue. Why? What's the difference? So the Gemara explains it through the means of a mashal. So what's the parable? You have a king. He appoints two of his servants. I want you to be able to create a seal which is made out of clay, which is very easy to obtain. It's going to be gold, which of course gold is not so easy to come by. But they didn't do it. So right, because it's so easy to do, it's so readily available. So if you didn't do that, the king's more upset. The gold, okay, I wish you could have done it, but I can understand why you couldn't have done it. It's harder to get. So if you didn't do tcheles, okay, tcheles is not as poshut. There's a whole process, as we saw in yesterday's daf, how to be able to make the tcheles. We don't even necessarily know what the tcheles is. Even if we do, it's not so simple to get. As opposed to Lavan, what's your excuse? Okay. Tanya, we make 100 brachas. Shenemar, and this is Gemara brachas too. V'yato yishom ma Hashem akecha shom. What does Hashem ask from you? Right? It's Parshas Akev. So what is Hashem? So Rav Chia b'rei the Rav Avi. So what do we say? It doesn't actually complete the drasha. So because it's so much known, I guess, in so many other places. Let's see. Does Rashi say? So it says ma Hashem akecha shoyel mimach. What does Hashem ask? So it's meya. So 100. Okay. So it's harder on Shabbos and Yom Tov. During the week, it's not so bad because now we have 19 brachos in the Shmona Esrei. So it's easy. You start daven Shachas Ben Chamarav, you're almost that's 57 right there. So it's pretty easy to be able to get to the 100 without too much difficulty. Actually, Rashi does say this. In Kari Be Meya. Okay, so that's the Rashi. Okay, so anyway, what do we do when you don't daven Shemon Esrei? We daven a Shemon Esrei if we do, but it's only 7 brachos. So and then we daven Musaf, but okay, that's 28. 28 is a lot less than 57. So how do you get to Tarcham Amalilu? How could you get to the 100 brachos on Shabbos? So it's bis par maki uvamadi, says Rashi. This is besumim, and also could be mini magadim shetu'unin bracha. So like you have like an Odig Shabbos, right? You have like a Shabbos party, so you have an opportunity to say extra brachos. There's 3 particular brachos that you should definitely say every day. Elohein. Shasani Yisrael, which is, we don't say that, we say Shasani Sholosani Goy, Shasani Sholosani Isha, which is our minig, and then Sholosani Bor, which of course that's not our minig, we say Sholosani Ovid. So Rav Achabar Yaakov Shamul Berei, Davikam Mavar Sholosani Boyer, he heard him say this bracha, which apparently is what we were just told you're supposed to do. So Amalei Kuli Hainami. So Kuli Hainami, says Rashi. What does that mean? That you're praising yourself. You're such a big shot. You're not an Amaretz. Maybe you are. Kuli Hainami Bishlam Chachavim V'isha Hoyel V'loy B'nei Mitzvanin Hu Shaper. I can understand that. El bor bar mitzvah, right? A bor is it's not a bor mitzvah, by the way. Kids, that's not supposed to be a bor mitzvah. You're a bar mitzvah, right? So bar mitzvah. So what do you mean? Shlo sani bor. What's the problem? He's a yid. He's mechuyev b'mitzvahs just like everyone else. So what does that mean that you make that bracha? Malay de'almai mavarich. So what should I say? Shlo sani aved. Hainuisha. So then what's the difference? So no, Eved Zil Tfei. So don't say Sholosani Bor, because first of all, who says you've reached that madrega of not being a bor? But even if you are, still they're mechuyev mitzvahs. That's not a bracha you say. So you say Sholosani Oved. How about Sholosani Isha? She says the fil hachem is zulzul Eved yotzim and Isha. It's more mezuzul to an Eved and an Isha. So maybe the bracha you should say is Sholos Ani Oved. Sholos Ani Isha, it's not so posh. Add more brachas. Sholos Ani Eved Kedei Hashlam. And you can say that to add them up. Okay. Again, to be able to get to the magic number of 100. Okay. Question TA23, no. And TB26, no. Adkan.